Welcome to Martial Mentality. I'm your host, Delmar Minor, head instructor of the Northern Shaolin School of Kung Fu in beautiful Rock Hill, South Carolina. With me today I have...
My name is Trevor. I'm one of the assistant instructors here, and I've been training for about 14 years.
My name is Joseph Blackwelder. I'm a student at the Northern Shaolin School of Kung Fu, and I just hit my Kung Fu 2-year anniversary.
Again, happy anniversary.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so today, guys, we're going to talk about martial arts curriculum. So I know maybe for you, Joe, you're going to have a different point of view on this because you haven't had to necessarily write a curriculum.
Right.
But you're experiencing a curriculum right now as you
Right.
train.
Right.
And then for you, Trevor, you're in
I've
the
experienced
process.
all the ups and
Yeah,
downs.
you've experienced
the
a
curriculum has been.
And now you're in the process of actually building a curriculum
Right.
for your school. And so we're going to talk about that today. So our first question, and I'm going to direct this at you, Joe, even though, you're like, what? I'm doing the curriculum. What is a martial arts curriculum? Especially in your case, since now that you're training, what would you say your experience with that has been? What is it to you?
It's interesting because I've been having this conversation with some friends lately because we've been talking about, if you're trying to go for martial arts, where you're going to go, what school you're going to sign up for. And a lot of these different arts have different appeals. And there's a reason I'm drawn to Kung Fu, the Northern Shaolin style of Kung Fu. If you may want to go learn just to fight and you want to fight, this may or may not be for you, because some days you're going to come in here, you're going to break a hard sweat, and because we stress the fact that it's physical and it's mental. So some days we're in here talking. We're talking through stuff, and we're talking about the mentality behind it. So
The martial mentality?
the martial mentality,
Ooh,
right?
clever.
So when we're talking about curriculum, it's going to be the steps you're taking to progress in said martial art. That's how I look at it.
Okay. Trevor, what about you? Martial arts curriculum.
I mean, it's I'm trying to think of anything specific. I mean, it's the foundation for however you're going to progress through your said art. It's different between styles, schools, etc. It's all different. Honestly, it's a lot of times when it comes to curriculum, it also is based off your teacher's experience. And, maybe they picked up something along the way that, I like that, and we're gonna add that in here, or we're gonna teach that, or maybe teach that earlier, whereas he might have learned that later on in life.
Well, for me, I've had experience building a couple of curriculums. A martial arts curriculum is how you basically want to build this person up to become as proficient as possible. So think about building a house. When you build a house, and Joe, I know you're in construction. Well, you're in construction too now.
I mean, yeah.
So both of you are in construction.
Engineering design.
Or
yeah.
engineering, yeah, okay.
So
So
it starts with the foundation.
it starts with the
Yeah.
foundation. So
Right.
what do you want your foundation to be for this person? Out of all the things that you teach them, what are the base things that you say, if I were to strip everything away, what are the basics? What are the foundational pieces that I want this person to take away from me teaching them this martial art?
So even though you have a curriculum for your school, you're saying this may vary person to person based on their strengths and weaknesses.
Now, and that it could. So we'll do it from a more general mindset for this one. So let's say you're teaching a group of people, and you go, okay, so what do I want these students to have as their base skills?
Mm-hmm.
If I were to strip everything away, what are the base skills? And so for Kung Fu, a lot of times we have forms, and karate, have katas and stuff like that. But then you have other arts like boxing or jujitsu. And so some of those base skills may be we're going to start off rolling.
Mm-hmm.
Or we're just going to start off with a basic jab, cross, whatever it could be.
Take down the fence.
Take down the fence,
Yeah.
right. What are the base skills that you want that person to have or people to have, and then you build off of that.
Okay.
So when you're building it, you have to think about that. So for us, that's why we do Lama Cho first. And for those of you who don't know what Lama Cho is a base form that we practice here at the Northern Shaolin School of Kung Fu. It was created by my second Sifu, Jason Van Winkle, and it's just basically a stance set in order to help students learn basic stance foundations, how to necessarily stand and things of that nature. And then based off of that, we drill different things and teach applications. But Joe, so let me ask you this. Your experience with our martial arts curriculum, how do you think it has helped progress you as a martial artist or maybe you feel like, oh, well, it's not helping me as much.
Right. I say first and foremost, it's helped me tremendously. But there's a reason behind that. If you're going to come do this kind of style of martial art, some people from the outside looking in may say, "Oh, that don't work." That's the first thing people say. They'd say, "Oh, that don't work." But there's a reason why we're doing it. We had this conversation earlier today. Every single thing we drill is to develop one skill.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's multiple skills, but if I'm doing this form and people may not understand what I'm doing, well, I'm going through each stance. Those are stances I'm going to be replicating in a fight when I'm sparring. They may not be exactly the same, but I'm going through the motions.
Right.
So, it's repetition.
Would you consider that like, so one thing that I've learned about form work, and I'm going to direct this at Trevor, is would you consider form work or kata work or whatever you may call it shadow boxing?
I mean, that's more or less what it was intended for.
Gotcha.
If you look at, like for instance, you can find videos of people training in China and whatnot, and like or country of origin or whatever martial art. Depending on where you're at, I mean, you're not really working a lot of form work. It's a lot of partner drills, single technique drills done in lines, back and forth, stuff like that. Your form work usually done the last portion of class, and it's like whatever everyone's working on at the time, that's what you're working on. Then you work on that outside of class.
And what you have to also understand, to kind of piggyback off both of your questions, is that when you're thinking about a martial arts curriculum, it doesn't always have to be built off of forms. So, if you do kung fu, you do karate, you have those things in there because we want to preserve certain skill sets that our previous teachers or, previous masters who have passed on, they have, provided these skills and things of this nature in order to pass them down. But, you have some schools, like you go to a boxing school, like we said before, or maybe you're doing wrestling, and maybe their base skills may be just, we're just going to work on mount, or we're going to work on, a single leg takedown. Like,
Right.
if you don't do anything else, do that.
Even though it may not be a curriculum like what we think of a curriculum, there's still a curriculum.
Right.
There's still a structure in this. We're going to start you here, and you're going to eventually progress to here, but we got to start you here first.
Right.
To add on to my answer as well, another thing I like about our style is that I'll go out there and do the form, and you'll make sure every detail, bending your knees, point your feet this way. We drill that, but then we take it to the next step. Okay, now I'm going to do it with somebody in front of me, or now I'm going to do it with a weapon in my hand, or defend against somebody with a weapon in their hand, and then I'm going to take it to the sparring. So we drill it, and then we apply it.
I think, and I think what has been lost with our art sometimes, and it's not just kung fu, it could be karate, taekwondo, anything that has like forms or katas or things of that nature, is that you learn them, but you don't learn how to use them. You don't learn what they're for. And so that's kind of what has taken the bite out of our martial art in some respects.
Like the traditional styles.
Yeah, yes. And when we say traditional styles, most people hear that term and hear, oh, well, you do, we go back to that form word, kata form. And a lot of more modern martial arts feel like, oh, well, that doesn't work. Why are you doing that? Why are you using a sword? You're not going to use a sword in real life. Why are you practicing with those sai? You don't carry sai on you. But
what happens when somebody picks up a lead pipe,
oh,
baseball bat, a 2x4?
Right. And sometimes you have to realize the best way to understand how to deal with weapons is to practice one. Because when you understand how it works, you can understand how to hopefully negate it.
Right.
Or get away from it. But that's a whole nother podcast that we can get into. But let's get back to our martial arts curriculum. So, guys, do you need a curriculum to run a school?
I would say that's probably more of a two-sided question. I would say yes and no. Yes, you need some type of structure when it comes to, I would say, if you're running an actual school. If it's just you and some friends meeting up to work out, y'all ain't got to follow anything. You just go and do what you want to do and be done with it. But I'd say if you're running a school and you're actually trying to teach something systematically in a way, there needs to be some type of guidelines to follow.
I would agree, because you got to have some kind of structure. If somebody shows up for a lesson, it could be, there's so many topics to choose from. We could work on our striking, our hands, we could work on our footwork. If you're going to be doing this over time, you've got to have some kind of structure, some kind of plan to go about it. That's the way I see it.
Well, you know what? I realize that, while I can be structured, I still like to be flexible with my thinking. So there's a lot of times, and you guys experience, they'll come in class, be like, what are we doing today? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what we're doing.
That was 90% of my life back in the day.
Man, I don't
I come
know.
in, what are we doing today, Seafood? I don't know.
That's
I
part
guess we're
of
going to do this.
Part of what I like is every day's different. You don't know what's going to get thrown at you. I may be having a day where I want to move around, and then we start talking like about that kind of stuff. I may have a bad day where I'm not energetic. Okay, guys, you're sparring for 10 rounds today. Oh, but that's kind of how life is.
Yeah, it's true.
Throw some curveballs at you.
But I guess I picked up that habit from my teachers, because my teachers never came in with like a game plan. Like they didn't.
I
they
would
didn't
say
have this
I
and
would
say.
say your second teacher was a little bit more structured than your first, but vice versa.
They didn't come in with, so this is what we're doing today. We're gonna follow this list of things and da 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 da. We're gonna do each of each.
I think got another good point to that is if you stick around here, and this is I don't have really any experience in any other schools, but I would assume that. So some may take you through a very strict curriculum. Like here, it's a little more free form, but it's not just, it depends on your hours and everything. The point is you're giving us tools. We're going to train here, but you're also giving us tools. Okay, you need to go out there and practice this on your own too. You know what I mean? So it's, if it was like going to the gym all week, you kind of develop like a regimen, right?
Mm-hmm.
But here it's like we're coming here like 3 times a week, and we're working out while we're here, but at the same time we're getting tools to take with us to train outside of the school.
Which your curriculum should be set up in such a way that your students can train outside the school.
Yep.
So they have an idea of knowing, all right, so if I want to practice, let's say, let's take white belt. Let's just use that as an example. What's on my white belt curriculum? Oh, I have to do 100 kicks, or I have to do 50 punches, or I need to do this form, and I need to know these things. Well, guess what? Now you know what that consists of, and you know what you need to practice. Now, of course, you can practice things outside of that, but there should be some kind of base foundation of skills that person should get at each individual level as they progress through whatever your curriculum says.
Yeah. I like to tell people, that are trying to get into working out, everybody's first instinct is, I got to go get a gym membership. You don't have to get a gym membership to go work out, to break
People
a sweat.
didn't have gyms back in the day.
No. I could get a workout right here, right now. I don't need weights. All I need is my body, and I can break a sweat. I can work out. So,
but I think as a society, we have progressed to a point where, and we always kind of been like this, but I think we're more like this today, especially this new generation. Just tell me what to do. I don't want to think. Just write it down.
Yeah,
just tell me. Just you want me to do 100? Okay, I'll do 100. The self-motivation factor is not there, which is why you kind of need a curriculum to be somewhat specific about these are the things that we want you to be able to do. Because how many times have we been teaching the children or the teenagers and we say, well, go do this. And then they won't do it. And I have to realize that, wait a second, this is a completely different generation of people.
Yeah, it's, you are the leader of this school. You're our SIFO. And you're giving us these tools, and you're telling us, and you're giving us these guidelines to adhere to. But, young or old, you have to be the leader of your own life. You at some point you have to kind of think for themselves, and it's not a bad thing to question people. It's not like question everything, but what I'm saying is when you tell me something, I need to say, why is he telling me this? And I need to understand that, And usually it's to make me better at my kung fu,
I mean, I had to dumb down what we were doing with the kids today, because I was thinking, all right, they've done T-Toy. Maybe we can actually try to get them going through some of them. I spent the entire time on just the first 2 until we switched over to working on jab and cross. And I was going to try to get to cross, never even got to it. We just worked on jab.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that's another aspect of your curriculum that I have learned. And that's why I guess sometimes I can be free form, because I have tried to plan things and my plans never go the way I thought it was going to go.
Get a little sidetracked.
Well, it's not even
always.
sidetracked. It's like, okay, we're going to do this, this, and this. And you think that your students are at a certain skill level or a certain ability level where you can kind of go, well, they can do that. And then,
Or they should be.
or they
and
should be able to do that. And maybe they're not at that point yet. So
Right.
what's the point of doing something else if they're struggling with something that may be basic that you really want them to be good at? So I'm not going to move on and say, okay, well, we're going to work on spinning sidekick
If you can't do a
if you can't do a sidekick,
Right.
right?
Right.
You know, so guess what? Maybe we need to divert and we're going to work sidekicks.
I mean, heck, we used to do the Meanwhile Jogging stuff all the time, along with the Shaolin, and we don't do that anymore at all because it was too hard for a lot of people to pick up.
Well, not only that, you know, and you start to see this with a lot of martial arts systems. You see systems, especially now in more modern times, they are changing the curriculum for people. Maybe they're doing less forms, more pad work, more sparring, because you know what I've seen about this generation of people or younger people is that the attention span is not there. And the good thing about a form or kata or things of that nature, more traditional training, sitting in horse stance, and you know that's what we make you do, is it does make you learn focus. But you see a lot of people don't want that necessarily anymore. I want to just do this.
Yep.
Almost mindless, numbing action. Okay, you want me to throw 100 jabs? I can do that. That's easy.
Right.
Just throw 100 jabs. All right, you want me to do that form 100 times? I don't know about that.
Right.
Because that takes a little bit more focus.
Takes more focus for sure. Yep.
And so those are skills that, you know, I think that's some of the good and bad. And so you have to balance your curriculum to ensure that you keep your students engaged.
That's a big part of the curriculum. You know, why are you coming here in the first place? Like, and you know, I have my son enrolled here now, and I told you before I signed him up, like, of course I want him to learn how to fight, but my main objective here isn't necessarily to see him throw a perfect punch right off the rip, because you know it's going to take a lot of practice. I want to see him focus better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's
And I
part
would
of
say
it.
he is.
He
Oh, yeah,
is,
no,
and
he's-
he totally is.
He totally is doing
definitely-
better.
Right.
He definitely has a lot more focus since the last time or the past few of the times I've worked with him. Like,
Right.
there's like one or two times today, like he started walking out. I was like, River, buddy,
He
get back
likes
in
to look
line."
in the mirror.
And
you know?
yeah,
Yeah, he does like to look at
I'd
himself.
be like, buddy,
Listen,
I'd be like, buddy, we're doing this, and he'd be like, okay.
Right, and he'll jump back to it.
he
Exactly.
knows he is a cute kid. He knows he is handsome. He's like, ooh, look at me.
Look at that.
Ooh,
look at that
guy.
sharp guy.
That
over
guy
there.
right there is beautiful.
Right.
He's got that long flowing hair. He's just
Right.
like, oh.
But see, like, that's something that draws me to this style too. You know, I came here learning to fight, but I love the whole mentality behind it too. It's not just the fighting. Like we said this in a previous podcast, a lot of time you're learning these skills so you don't have to fight. You know, and
Well,
it's,
you know, your curriculum should also hopefully develop a certain mentality, a martial mentality, for your students. So sometimes when you do more traditional training, we make you do things and you go, like you said earlier, why am I doing this?
Well, I mean, it's not just fighting you're learning. You also got to think about, like, especially like, you know, in Kung Fu and German, you're also learning the culture.
That's
Yeah.
true
Culture
too.
is part of the curriculum.
right.
So why do we come in and, you know, we start off with a certain vow or
Mm-hmm.
a certain way we go about
Yep.
warming up, or we're talking about, like, you know, like the path masters on the wall and stuff like
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, that's true.
You've said before, this is very much a lifestyle, and it's also not there's really no finish line. This is like a lifelong journey kind of thing.
It is. It
So-
is. It is.
Like, you know, I took a while off, you know, because I was focused on college, but that doesn't mean my Kung Fu ended.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's constant.
No,
Whether,
no. You know, so let me ask you also this question, guys. I'm going to start with you, Trevor. Should your curriculum, like for you specifically, since you're teaching, should your curriculum match my curriculum?
I'm gonna say,
Or does your curriculum have to match your teacher's curriculum?
I'm gonna say, not necessarily. I believe the core of the curriculum should match your teachers and their teachers and whatnot, because you're trying to pass down something, you know, whatever art you're in, you're wanting to pass that on. So you want to keep the core ideas, values, etc., all that together. But then it can differ, because I mean, it's life. People have different other experiences, maybe with other arts that they've trained in. It's like, you know what, I like this, I'm gonna add this in here. so on and so forth.
And here's the thing that I think people need to also realize. I had to learn this. If it works, I'm going to teach it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's effective, I'm going to show it. I don't care what style it comes from, because what happens to a lot of people is they get style specific. Well, that's not in our system. Well, maybe it is, and maybe you just hadn't seen it yet. And if you haven't studied long enough of what you're doing, then, like a rear naked choke. How many times have we gone through material and we go, oh, that's a rear naked choke. That's a rear naked choke. Oh, that's this, that's that. But what happens to a lot of people is they know it and they can do it, but they haven't analyzed it. It's not a part of them. And so what we try to do here when we go through the curriculum is we want to teach you the skills, but we want to really teach you how to use the skills when you need the skills.
Yeah.
That's a big thing.
I think another thing a lot of people don't realize is curriculum is going to differ person to person because of what you're good at and what you're. I mean, look at all the styles that are around.
We're all taught that people learn differently. There's different ways of learning, visual, acting. But for people that like to teach, there's different styles of teaching. So even though you both learn the same thing, you may show it a different way.
Right.
Well, you have different learners. Kinesthetic. You have audio. You have visual.
Mm-hmm.
So as a teacher, you have to incorporate all those different aspects into your teaching style.
Right.
Because some people may learn better from you lecturing.
Mm-hmm.
They go, oh, okay.
That makes perfect sense.
I
in my head.
didn't get that when he was showing it, but now that he's talking about it, I totally understand it. And then you have the other person that is like, no, it looks like this. You show it, and they go, oh man, okay. Now that you show me that, I've got it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got the people that say, no, I got to do some sparring, or I got to do a 2-person drill with you. Come on, we're gonna do it together. And then they do, and they go, oh, I understand it now. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to add all those different things into your curriculum as you teach. Perfect example today, those teenagers, we were going through those self-protection drills. A lot of times, one of them was like, they don't like drilling like that. They just don't. They're like, I want to do forms. I want to do sparring. Right. I want to spar. Right. I want to do that, But they don't realize that the drilling is how you're learning, timing, and you're learning the repetition. And even as a partner, you have to actually do whatever you're trying to do to that person so they can understand what that feels like.
Even when you're holding a pad. People, if you're a pad holder, there's good pad holders and bad pad holders.
Yeah.
You know
There's
what
a
I mean?
way to hold pads.
There is, especially like boxing mitts. You know what I mean? You don't want to just stand there. I mean, you're active with the other person.
Speaking of way to hold pads, did you see the video I sent you that Thomas putting out about how to hold the clapper pads?
Oh, you're talking about from the Taekwondo lab?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So guys, real quick, I mean, just a quick plug, being random, but our friend Thomas Husky, he has a YouTube channel. It's a Taekwondo lab. Check it out. He talks about all kinds of really, really good tips for people who do not only Taekwondo, but martial arts in general. And he just posted a video about holding pads the correct way. And so, yeah, there's a science to holding pads.
Interesting. I'm going to check that out.
Yeah, you should. So everybody out in YouTube land and who's listening to this podcast, you should check that out as well.
And honestly, maybe even kind of think, some of the points you brought up was like, if you're wanting them to kick to the body, then you need to hold it in that area where it is, not
That's
necessarily
exactly
way
right.
out here.
That's what I meant about the boxing mitts. It's like if their objective is to hit you in the face, why are you holding your pad over here? You know what I mean? So, hey, to wrap it all up, make that a part of your curriculum.
No, yeah, right.
Right.
Well, you have to teach people how to do those things.
Right.
And
right.
if you don't teach them how to do those things, they're not going to do it.
Yep.
So, but I mean, that just goes with when you're teaching people, like you said, part of your curriculum, maybe you put in there, hey, this is how you hold pads.
Mm-hmm.
This is how you need to be working these certain combinations so they learn and develop that, I guess you want to say a culture.
Mm-hmm.
This is how we do it.
Right.
So this is what I want you to do. And so as the teacher, you have to make sure that you build your curriculum so you get your students to do what you want them to do or be what you want them to be.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Right.
So guys, we're going to take a quick commercial break because we got to pay some bills. Okay, so I want to plug a school that is dear to our hearts. They're a friend of ours. Shaolin Kung Fu Studios, located at 196C Stonebridge Drive, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Email is northernshaolin.se@gmail.com. And the seafood there is Shane Rowan.
One of the coolest guys you'll ever meet.
So if you're ever in the Myrtle Beach area, and if you've never been to Myrtle Beach in South Carolina, it's beautiful, by the way. Lots of cool things to do there. So yeah, guys, Shaolin Kung Fu Studios. Remember, it's in Myrtle Beach. Check them out. And we're back. So guys, let's continue on our topic of martial arts curriculum. Joe, I got this question for you. Even though like you're not teaching, you're still teaching in some way. You're helping the kids. You're working out with us, and you have you're training with your partners. Do you feel like you should always follow your curriculum down to the letter?
That's a very good question. So it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, and you should always ask yourself why they're teaching you what they're teaching you, and understand the mechanics behind it. And if they teach you something a certain way, you've just got to understand the why. So if it comes down to like turning your hip over for a kick, why is he doing that? Well, you're getting more power, you're pushing through. So I understand that. If I didn't understand that, then why am I going to do it that way?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I think it comes down to. So yes and no. Some people may like to do things different way. I've got the kicks in my head, right? Like we train to throw a kick from a standing position with no steps, but we also just the other day trained a kick where you step across and throw a kick.
Mm-hmm.
I like that version. It works good for me. So maybe I want to do it that way. And you tell us, it doesn't necessarily, neither one is wrong. So, but if some styles say you have to do it this way, you may not have to do it exactly that way every time, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, a curriculum is like the technique. I feel like it gives you the base.
Yeah.
Do this, okay? So like, let's take a roundhouse kick. You can learn a roundhouse kick standing where you don't step and you pivot.
Right.
Then you can learn it where you step through. And then there's other different variations of ways to throw a roundhouse kick.
Right. That's something I like about you as a teacher, is you will explain that there's different ways of doing this. I haven't had any experience where it was like, you do it this way, this is the way it is, don't do it any other way. I've not had that,
There are some teachers like that.
I could see how that could be a thing.
There are some teachers like that. So Trevor, with your curriculum right now that you're developing for your school, or if you already have a curriculum,
I mean, it's just yours. And I'll probably tweak it here and there later on,
but okay.
Ours.
So all right. So since you're using our curriculum right now, do you follow that curriculum to the letter when you're teaching your students?
I think honestly it depends on it depends on a couple of different things. I would say for brand new like ranked beginners, yeah, we're gonna start here. Let's say I have someone who's like, oh, I've done different type of Northern Shaolin, but I've done some stuff before. Okay, I might even evaluate them. All right, let me see something from your stuff. And it's like, okay, well, I don't really need to go over the basics with you because your basics seem pretty good. We can actually start you on something maybe a little bit further on down the line. It depends. Honestly, and age is a big thing too. Like my one student, she's an older lady, so I'm starting off with the basics with her because she's not used to how we move and stuff like that. So we're gonna work on this. We're gonna I have an idea in my head of how we're going to be going through this.
And a good example of why sometimes I feel like it depends, like you made a good point, depending on the age group will change how you do your curriculum. Kids, the children, some of the things that we have up there,
they ain't never going to
they're not going to be able to do that right now.
They're not going to be able to do six or Liambu or any of the weapons, but you know what we can do? Teach them how to have, manners, how to focus, how to do, simple things.
Start with those basic stances and making sure they're good.
Knowing your left from your right.
No, that's a big one.
That was something today. I was like, all right, everyone, put your left foot forward. Everyone's putting their right foot forward. I'm like, okay. Raise your hand for your left one. Your right one. They raised the left one. It's like,
that's a tough question. my head goes straight to like specific techniques, because in different martial arts they do specific techniques. Like if you take karate or like Muay Thai, there's very specific movements you tend to see.
Mm-hmm.
The way they throw like a
Mhm.
roundhouse kick.
Mm-hmm.
And you've always say this. You say like neither is wrong. It's timing and how you train it, why you're throwing it that way. But I could totally see how some styles would say, don't throw it the other way.
Right.
It's not as effective. Well, it certainly can be.
It can be. It depends on your timing. It depends on the situation. And
Good quote. They say it's not the martial art, it's the martial artist.
it is.
Yeah.
It is. And to me, when you're teaching a curriculum, like I said, okay, let's go back to the roundhouse. We're going to teach a roundhouse. I like to teach you're going to pivot and you're going to turn your heel to target. You need to be able to do that without stepping, because I feel like once you have that mastered, okay, now I'm going to teach you with a step.
Step should be easier.
And the step should be easier.
And probably more powerful.
And more
Because you've got the
powerful.
form right.
Right.
All right.
But when you don't need the step or you don't have the step, you can do that too.
Perfect example, sparring match. I was sparring earlier today, and we were going over like front kicks in a sparring match. And if you have to take a step, it should be for a reason. You might want to cover ground, and like if they're distracted. But if they're lunging at you, you don't need to step.
That's right.
And it's going to be faster just to pick that foot up and throw that kick.
Right.
More effective.
Right,
So
right.
it's good to learn both, to know when to use both.
Exactly. So if it's kind of like cooking. What if you only know how to cook something one way?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I mean, it may work and it's good, but you may decide to spice it up a little bit. Maybe you add a little bit of paprika,
That's right.
Put a little
Some Old
cayenne
Bay.
pepper in there, put some
Little
Old Bay in
bit of that
there.
cayenne pepper.
And then you'd be like, man, okay, that really gives it a different kick.
Yeah.
The other way is good, but this way is good too.
Right.
So it depends on what what's the flavor for the day.
Yep.
And you may need, like maybe you're fighting an opponent or sparring with somebody and you go, I'm not getting enough power with just pivoting. I got to step through. Bam, I got to hit this guy.
Right.
I got to make them feel it. So, but, to wrap up this question, I would definitely say you need to be adaptable with your teaching.
That's a good way to put it.
And students are, like we kind of talked about earlier, students are all different. And sometimes you're going to have to tweak some things to get somebody to get something.
Mm-hmm.
And if you stay very stagnant with how you do things, sometimes that can turn people off, or they don't learn. Or if they do learn, they learn the wrong way, and their body mechanics are not good.
Yeah. I was cheating myself on certain movements there for a good while until I realized like I'm like cheating certain body mechanics to get like a higher kick or something like that, but the kick's not effective if I don't do it right. So even if it's harder to kick this high, keep working it at this height until I develop the strength and the flexibility to keep getting it higher with good technique.
So I just had an epiphany. A good curriculum should help you as a student and a teacher definitely show the strengths and the weaknesses of your students.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're evaluating them as a teacher, you go, okay, this is what I want my white belts to do. Just use that term. And if your white belts aren't doing it, then you might need to revisit that curriculum. You may have to go, okay, that's not effective right now. They're not getting where I want them to be. So what do I need to put in here to get them where I want them to be? And then you need to think about maybe the time stamps on that too. So maybe you say, okay, well, in a 6-month period, you should be here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, you get a student and you take them through that curriculum, and it's gotten to 6 months, and maybe they're not quite where you want them to be. Okay, did your curriculum not work? Is that person not doing what you need to do? Are they not practicing? There's that evaluation process and that's what a good curriculum should be. A good curriculum should be a base document of, this is what I want for my students. Then you enact that curriculum and you watch how they progress.
Mm-hmm.
If things are kind of going according to schedule based on that curriculum, then it's probably working pretty well.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like, every single person's different. They learn different. Their bodies are different. But when you come into this school and this program, by this time, this is what I would like to see.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, your curriculum is more or less like, okay, You start. Let's say we got a person brand new walk through the doors today. By, like you said, 6 months or so, we have an idea that we want to see you here, and you know how to do X, Y, and Z, and you can do it proficiently
Right.
for whatever you're going for, or however you want to say that.
Right.
But like that's whenever, like, but let's say, all right, they're here in this area, but they're not here in this area. It's, okay, now we need to go back and tweak some things and figure some stuff out that helps get them to where they need to be.
Right. You talk about it a lot with, like, when you mentioned Lamacho, our first form earlier, you're going over your basic stances. And if you don't get those stances right, well, you're not going to be able to perform the later forms.
Right. Exactly.
So,
and not only the later forms, let's say when you're sparring, because we always talk about how we use our stances during our sparring. So if your horse stance is bad, you're not going to be able to maybe grapple with somebody effectively.
right.
Or sink your weight, because you're not going to know how that works. Or you're going to have your form off. And so, like, when somebody attacks you and you go to try to employ that, it doesn't work well for you.
Yeah. Trying to, crane stance with side kicks, or, throwing a 1-2 with a bow stance, turning your hip over. So,
True. So, can your curriculum, Joe, include other martial arts?
absolutely. I would say absolutely. I would agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why would you say that? So
Well,
we obviously do Northern Shaolin.
Yep.
So why would you say, well, in my curriculum, I'm going to put in some jujitsu or some boxing?
Here's my first most simple answer. And that's because, well, we train for tournaments, but ultimately we're also training for real life situations. Well, is that person going to come at you with Northern Shaolin Kung Fu?
Probably not.
Right. You never know what they're going to come at you with. So it's also thinking of it from the other standpoint of, like, defensive, not just offensive, but defensive. Like, what are they going to attack me with? And also, we train a certain way, but you're like, you have more weapons than just that. Like, there's a lot of ways to take offense to somebody, and so if you throw in, like, okay, this is how a Muay Thai fighter might do it, or this is how karate style might do it, or, if somebody who's not trained, chances are they're going to do this. It's a very good thing to instill in people. If you train them like, this is the way, this is the only way, and then they get in a real situation where it's completely different, it might catch them off guard.
That's a good point. Being definitely adaptable is something that you have to be. Trevor, what about you?
Well, what's the question again?
The Trevor. Sorry. What I'm asking is, can your curriculum include other areas of martial arts, or can it include other martial arts?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, not everything has everything. Some arts are specific to this specific thing. Some are kind of what's the word, like a la carte, like they got a little bit of everything. If let's say you have a student who wants to focus specifically in maybe this one area, all right, well, we can put you on, we got a little bit, a little bit of swag or whatever. We can show you some of this, so on and so forth. So no, and I mean, if you find something that you like that feels like adds to your art already, I don't see a point in why you couldn't bring that in. Because if you feel like it's going to be beneficial to you and your students, then why not?
So you said something today, and I can definitely tell how long you've been around me. So I showed that self protection thing to the teenagers, and you went, and that's from your Ishimori, right? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, and I think you tried.
I named the kata.
I think you named the kata, and I was like, that's pretty good.
Learning.
No, right? Like, it's pretty good. He caught that.
I mean, I am the quote unquote white shadow.
I mean, yes. I have called Trevor my white shadow.
The big thing now, people say, like, whether they're trained or not, is like everybody's like, oh, MMA, mixed martial arts, and they put that title on it, but the truth is, it's just you're just learning all these different styles. I like to strike, so I want to stand on my feet, but that doesn't mean somebody's gonna come up and strike. They might be like a bigger opponent, and they might come try to take me down and
might want to grapple with you. Yeah.
I mean, look at how we got all the different styles there are now. Like you may have started off under a teacher, and y'all all learned the same thing up to a certain point. But it's like, oh, this kid's tall and lanky. We're gonna teach him some praying mantis. This kid, he's short, but he's got long arms. We're gonna show you monkey. It's also about like the person, the student as a person, like characteristics whether it be physical, mental, whatever. It's like, you know what, you might benefit from some of this, so
That's a good
we're
point.
gonna give it
That's
to
a
you.
good fighting tip in general. Size matters. You know,
It does.
it matters
It
in
does.
one way or another. Not in the sense like people would just say, "Oh, the bigger opponent's going to win." No, it always matters in the sense that you're not going to fight a bigger opponent the same way you may fight a smaller, or you may not fight this person the way you fight this person.
So, what we have to realize, and this came to me as I was thinking about this question, our curriculum may change based on the people we teach.
Mm-hmm.
So we see it. We have our students. We have a group of students. Let's say you got a group of people that are perfect example. Okay, anybody who does martial arts knows the story of Bodhidharma finding the monks. They were lazy, so he taught them these skills and drills, and then eventually Kung Fu was born. Paraphrasing it. Well, okay, what if you get a group of people who aren't in shape? So guess what you got to do? You got to cater that curriculum. I
That's
got to get
right.
these people in shape.
That's right.
No point in trying to teach them how to do a tornado kick when they can't
Yep.
get themselves up
That's
off the
another
ground after
reason
a
it's
push-up.
a long term thing too. Like, say, you get up in the ranks and you know a lot of good techniques and you throw them effectively. Well, what happens then when life hits you and you sit down and you're lazy for a year or two?
Mm-hmm.
You got to
Yeah.
get back in shape.
Yeah,
You know?
and you have to think about a curriculum of, like you said, I've got somebody who may have some skill, they've done something, they have previous training, and then you have somebody who's brand spanking new. I've never done this a day in my life.
Mhm.
How are they going to build up? And then you have everybody, every walk of life comes through these doors.
That's right. Yeah.
And what I'm learning is with your curriculum, you have to be able to handle the majority. You're not going to get everybody. I mean, that's impossible to get everybody, but you need to get the majority of people so you can ensure that your martial art is effective for what you want it to be effective for.
Hmm.
So, guys, real quick, should your curriculum evolve over time?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't evolve, you don't move with times, you're just gonna get left behind.
There's like two aspects to that, right? Like you mentioned something earlier about like if it works, I show it, but like there's that saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, kind of thing.
Mhm.
But then the word comes to mind, adaptability.
Mhm.
You know, as the time change, sometimes the curriculum may need to change. And you said it in just your previous statement too. It may change based on the people.
Yeah.
So
I can
I
attest the curriculum here has changed a lot over the years.
yeah,
We had to, because the people changed.
right. You may not have to uproot your whole system, but it's just like you have to adapt to the times, to the people.
Might
so,
be more building blocks that
Yeah.
get added.
And
or what's more effective? I've been teaching this, but it seems like this is more effective. Like,
let me tell you one thing that I did with the curriculum that I remember. Trevor probably remembers this. At first, I would teach a lot of form, but then what I realized is people could not defend themselves. They sucked at being able to fight.
Mm.
And so then what I started to do was say, okay, we're going to teach less form in the beginning. We're going to focus more on more sparring, more self-protection, more simplistic technique. We're going to do a lot of two-person drills. We're going to do a lot of pad work, and we're not going to do as much form work in the beginning. What I started to see is that people had skills faster. But then when I started going through the forms and I started to go, oh, you remember that you did when I taught you that skill? That's right there. But then here's a variation on it. This is how you use it. And people go, really?
You see a lot more light bulbs pop
Bing,
on.
bing, bing. Oh, that's how I use
Yeah.
that. Got it.
I've told you many a times my story. Like, I think it's like a tea toy. Either way, like just to share with the audience, I don't have to get into specifics, but there's a part in the form where you do like a high block, you raise your hand and the other hand comes out. And I was sparring, and a guy threw a hook at me, and it was magic. Like it was exactly like it was in the form. I blocked his punch and like at the same time threw my punch and it landed, and it was like, like, oh my gosh, this works.
He's
and
got the glow.
And the more you do it, the more you see that when you're in your sparring. A lot of times it's not exact, but like you said, sometimes in the form you can slightly have a variation of it, and it's what you're doing.
Kind of like what you always say: spar like you're doing a form, do your form like you're sparring.
Well, it's a template. So like we have to understand how people, when your curriculum your curriculum is like a road or a guide. Okay, this is where we want it to go. And then, when you're looking at techniques and you're looking at forms and things like that, they're templates. And just like you can do it one way, you can do it another way. So let's take the alphabet, right? Everybody here, we learn the letters. Then what do you start to do after that?
Make them into words.
Make them into words.
Learn vowels, consonants.
Vowels, consonants, right? Okay.
Yeah. Grammar.
Yeah, grammar. You learn syntax. How do they work? How are they structured? Okay. Then you take those words and then what do you do with them?
Sentences.
Combinations.
Combinations.
And now you realize that you can put them in different combinations. Oh, I can say this word with this, or this word with that, or these words with this.
And depending on how you word it, the outcome's different.
The outcome is different. Okay.
That's right.
So then what happens after you have sentences? What comes next?
Paragraphs.
So now you have a concept. You go, oh, so now I can take all these words, sentences, and put them in this order, and I get an idea. This is information. And then, obviously.
Then you put another person in front of them, you're having a conversation.
Yeah, you're having a conversation, right.
Or a debate.
You're writing essays.
Right.
You're writing books.
Or an argument.
Or you're doing a YouTube video,
Right.
Things
a
of that
podcast.
nature. Or you're doing a podcast.
That's a good analogy.
So fighting can be the same way, or martial arts can be the same way, or building a curriculum is the same way.
Mm.
You start out with the letters. In order to build a word, you need to know your letters. You need to know the sounds. Then you build the words. Then you make the sentences. Then you have a paragraph. And then, it goes on and on and on. And like anything that you study, you can get as deep as you want to get.
Mm-hmm.
The study of words is infinite.
Yep.
People study that for the rest of their life. So like we said in a previous podcast about your kung fu, that could be your kung fu. So in this respect, when you build that curriculum, you go, okay, this is the way it's going to go. But then we also have to make sure that we may have to divert because we say, this person is not getting it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have to, look at all the different things. We have a lot of people that come into our schools. Some people have special needs.
Mm-hmm.
They don't get certain concepts the way somebody else may get a concept. And so you have to change the way you present that information to that person. That doesn't mean they're not able to learn.
You have to be able to present the information you've been given, whether it be your curriculum or whatever, in multiple different ways in order to be able to reach a broad spectrum of people.
Mm.
Another thing that a lot of people who do traditional martial arts sometimes don't want to do is they don't want to change a form, or they don't want to change how they do it because, my teacher did it that way, we're going to do it this way. Okay, well, we've had people come into our school that say, I've got a knee injury. I'm not able to kick that high.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay.
Right.
We may have to modify that for you.
Yep.
But sometimes I think certain people are just like, oh, well, this style isn't built for you because you're not able to do that.
There's a difference between like an excuse and a valid reason.
Mm-hmm. I was listening to a
mean?
podcast where this guy was talking about he had to teach this guy he didn't have his right arm, so they had to completely rehaul everything because most martial arts they're right hand dominant.
Mm-hmm.
So when it came to especially when they said when it came to weapons and all the other stuff, they had to do some tweaking.
Yeah.
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 And if I remember right, I think that guy said it ended up being one of his best students.
We as teachers and people in the martial arts, I feel, this is my opinion, we have to be adaptable. Yeah. Our world is very different. And when somebody comes into your school, like we've said on previous podcasts, we talked about that word can't. Don't have somebody come in and be like, oh, well, you can't do this.
Yeah,
or they keep saying no, I can't do this.
Right.
I'm having to deal with that with my one student who I meet up during the week with. I'm like, it's not that.
Right. Don't put limitations on yourself.
Yeah, you haven't even tried this yet. You've not done this yet. You can't say you can't do it unless you try.
It was funny.
And even then, it's not, I can't do this. I am unable, I'm unable to do this at this time.
It's
right.
Funny.
It takes work.
Funny thing, one of my coworkers brought his daughter here today because he wanted her to learn some self-defense or self-protection things. And so his daughter's very flexible. She just went into a split when we were stretching.
Oh yeah, no. When she was doing T-Toy, she was I said you could easily kick yourself.
But it was funny because he sees me at work, so he doesn't see me out in this environment. So I went over to her and I just went, whoop, and I just went into a split. And he was like, "Oh, I didn't know you could do that."
Oh yeah, no. I was sitting next to him. He was like, "Oh, I didn't know he could do that at all."
I came into this place and I knew you were like the Sifu. And I'd done been here for months. And then one day we were stretching and you did like a front split. And I was like, dang, he really can like do a split. I was like, what the heck?
Yeah,
Surprised me. I was like,
But here's the thing, you know, like in our martial arts school, it should be just because somebody looks a certain way, just because somebody appears a certain way, doesn't mean they don't have skills.
right.
True.
Right.
Don't. This is the one thing that I've done where I have learned you do not underestimate somebody.
No.
No, like especially like that. What was that? The dude you competed against at Sherford Dimitri's tournament.
Oh yes.
Big guy. I mean, big dude.
Shout out to Aaron,
Yeah, Aaron, you the GOAT, bro.
bro. Your karate is amazing, phenomenal.
But yeah, like I mean, you see him. You wouldn't expect a man of his size and stature to be able to move as quick and as sharp the way he did.
Like
it was
a dancing bear.
It was
Yeah.
like lightning. I was like,
That's a good
oh.
way. I've been surprised. Well, I've
Wait.
been surprised by everybody, but
Yeah, Trevor, you just cussed. Oh,
My bad.
bad Trevor. Bad Trevor.
I've been surprised by a lot of people here, but two that come to mind. And I always talk, Mr. Ed, I did not expect him to be able to move that fast the first time I seen him demonstrate.
A lot of people don't expect Mr. Ed to be able to move as fast. as
The
he
other
can.
person was Trevor. You know,
Really?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I've even sparred with you much, but
I don't know.
I remember seeing you spar one time for the first time, and I already knew like you're our Dai Sihing, your eldest, and now you're a Sifu, so I knew you had done it a long time. But people may look at Trevor and think like people have different opinions. Like when I seen him spar, I seen him throw like a head kick, and it landed so clean, and I was like, okay, like he knows what he's doing. He has been doing this a while.
Listen, one thing, and we'll get back. I got one more question for you. But one thing about being, a martial artist and a teacher that's so fun is, I won't lie, I like flexing on people sometimes because people look at you and they go, and you can tell if you've been teaching long
every
enough.
once in a while, you gotta kind of show people.
Martial artist
you know.
doesn't necessarily mean bodybuilder. There is a physical aspect, of course. If you're in good physical shape, that's good for you. That's good for a lot of things, health. But it doesn't necessarily mean you got to be like a bodybuilder.
Oh no! If you look
You
at a
know what I
lot
mean?
of, I'm trying to think. Like, there's a guy. He's a big internal guy in Taiwan, Lu Show. You would not think this man would be able to do a lot of what you see videos of him doing, and it's like black and white videos because that's how far back in the day it was. He's a big dude. He got a big old rotund belly, and you wouldn't think this man would be able to jump as high as he can. Like, there's videos of him like doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and it's just like.
Last thing, and then I get to my last question. You know who's a great example of somebody like that? Sammo Hung.
Oh yeah, no, that man. You know Sammo Hung.
So,
I may have seen
I
some
guarantee
videos.
you've seen. If you watch any Jackie Chan
Sammo
movie,
Hung.
you have seen Sammo Hung.
Okay.
But he is a big dude. I mean, looks like someone's grandpa.
Mhm.
But like he's doing bat flips, and like he's the one who taught Jackie Chan because he's technically Jackie Chan's like older kung fu brother.
Yep.
And like you wouldn't think how big this dude is that
Yeah.
he can move the way he can.
Gotcha. The big lesson, I think, don't assume.
Hold on.
Assume they're great.
Have you seen Ip Man 2?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know the scene where they're in the restaurant and they're fighting on the table?
Yeah.
That's Sammo
Sammo
Hung.
Hung,
Okay.
yeah, he's
okay.
in there. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Long gray hair.
Yep.
So last question. What advice do you have to new teachers building a curriculum? Trevor, you're a new teacher. You're building a curriculum. Do you have any advice?
I mean, stick to what you know, I guess, when starting out, but don't be afraid to branch out if you feel like, you know what, this can add something to this and make it better. Do it. What's the point of holding tradition, da 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 da. If we stick to all the old ways, we're eventually just going to end up dying out.
Well, here's the thing. We have to realize the people that created our systems created them for a purpose or whatever they had going on in their lives at the time.
Yep.
And yes, it
At
works.
least they should. You should have a reason behind it.
Right. So they created this for a purpose, for a reason, to share ideas. And
But they also didn't expect it to stay the same constantly.
well, and I think for us that we are, we're the future generation. In our mind, we go, it can never change.
Mm.
It has to stay the same.
I think
Right.
at the core, there should be some, what's the word I'm looking for? The core should be there, but that doesn't mean that the stuff around it can't change.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll tell you one thing that I've learned too. Some people go, well, if you don't have the whole system, then it's not effective. That's not true. You can be look.
A 1-2 can be pretty effective.
I mean,
you know?
I know some people that don't know quote unquote a lot of techniques,
Right.
but they'll mop the floor with you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because they can use what they know extremely well.
Yep. Not 1,000 kicks, but one kick 1,000 times.
I
kind of
mean,
thing.
and so some people are purists in that in that state where they go, well, you need the whole Hungar system. You need everything. If you don't have everything, then you're not able to do X, Y, and Z. And that may be true. I don't do Hungar. I'm just using that as an example.
Right.
But what I'm saying is, I know some people that they haven't gotten to all the forms and all the techniques of a certain system, but boy, can they use what they know really well, and they can teach it well.
Right. Right.
So for you, Joe, what advice would you give for new teachers building a curriculum, even though maybe you've never had to build a curriculum?
Right.
But
not in this regard for martial arts. I do have I would love to teach self-defense one day, whether it's kung fu or just basic self-defense.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be a particular art, boxing or.
Don't you teach music?
Oh yeah. Yep. I teach music.
Okay, well let's add it in that
Yep.
perspective. So what
Oh,
what
I have a
advice-
curriculum for guitar, and
Oh.
it has. Oh man, you just opened up a whole.
Go
can of
for
worms.
it, go
It
for
has
it.
evolved over the years
Go
too.
for it.
Actually,
Let's hear it.
I used to teach. I mean, I don't have to get too specific, but there was I had a very specific first lesson and second lesson. I kind of gave people. I'd show them a certain couple chords. I'd teach them what strings are which, and then I would show them a little riff with one string. And there was a reason behind all of it, because you're just getting efficient. You're feeling out the instrument, right? And I didn't really go into any kind of theory behind it, but now my thoughts have changed on that drastically.
Mm-hmm.
Now I feel like they should learn the theory, but it depends on the person too. Because most people that are trying to get into an instrument, or specifically guitar, their first thing is they want to be able to play something.
Mm-hmm.
They're not interested in all that musical theory stuff, but
You don't want to run scales, all that.
exactly.
Stuff.
But if you end up eventually getting serious about it, you will thank yourself that you learned that stuff.
So here's the last thing that I want to say. As a teacher, and you just kind of highlighted it. I don't know if anybody picked it up out there in YouTube land. As you change, your curriculum should change.
Yep.
Because you're an evolving person. You're an adapting person. You change. Your experiences change. And so I'll never forget, my curriculum started to change when I definitely started to delve more into more sparring, more self-protection type things. So I was like, I want my students to be able to defend themselves. I want them to be able to have decent sparring skills. I want those things for them. They may not ever learn Shaolin 6 or Shaolin 7 or Lian Bu, but,
They could come here, spend an amount of time, and be much more confident,
right.
protecting themselves.
Exactly. And the kids are a great example, because we'll put the kids in the sparring ring and they'll be like, oh, those kids look pretty good at sparring.
Mm-hmm.
You try to do some forms with them, they're not as proficient.
Yeah.
But once again, it goes back to that focus area. But guess what? At least I know, okay, hopefully you have some skills to be able to protect yourself if need be.
Right.
Something that you can use out in the world. We'll keep building you behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
But when you go into that world, hopefully this curriculum has given you enough tools, enough basics, enough foundation for you to say, hey, look, somebody's trying to come at me. I can do this to protect myself. Mm-hmm. That's what I want. So again, going back to curriculum, what is the goal that you want for your students? What is that? What do you eventually foresee them having in order to say, okay, I'm going to build my curriculum this way? And don't be afraid to change it. Don't be afraid to add to it. Maybe you take away from it. There's been plenty of times where, Trevor's experienced this. My teacher would walk through the door and be like, we're not doing this anymore.
I can't tell you how many times that happened.
Right. Like, okay, we're
Throw
not
that
doing
out.
it. Yeah, we're not doing it. Throw it out.
I don't remember what it was. I was halfway through learning it, And then Keone came for a visit and was like, "Oh, we're not doing that anymore." And then I just never got to finish it. I
Yeah.
don't remember what it was.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
Right.
Now, I have set things in place here to say, no, we're going to try to stay here, but it will adapt. So what you may see, a form get added in or this get added in, and
Something get removed.
or something get removed, and there's a reason behind it, not because it's bad, but because things evolve.
Right. I know we're wrapping up soon, but what you said earlier about as you change, your curriculum changes. Another point I think to add to that is martial arts are maybe a little bit different than, I'm still now I got guitar in my head, but like when it comes to any kind of skill, people don't like to admit it, but the truth is I can really only teach you as well as I know it.
Oh, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to throw that in there.
Well, that goes back to, a previous episode, What is a Sifu? Check that out on YouTube. You should still be a practicing martial artist. How well do you know it?
Right. I'm teaching guitar now, and I also get lessons still.
And there's nothing wrong with
Right.
that.
It's
I'll tell you this real quick. I was helping out one of our students this morning, and I was having some brain farts on some forms. It's not that I don't know them.
mm-hmm.
It's just today was a rough practice for me.
Yep.
And so I had to be like, how does that one start again? And he would show me, and I'd be like, oh, duh.
All right.
And then, then there were times when we were working out, he would do something, and I said, well, you left out the piece, And so what I learned from those experiences is that, one, yeah, I'm the teacher, but I'm not perfect. Okay?
No one's perfect.
I'm going to be fallible sometimes. Sometimes I'm not going to necessarily get everything right. And I have to be okay with that. It doesn't mean I don't know it. It doesn't mean I don't practice. I just
Right.
had a rough day today.
Yep.
And it also keeps me humble that go, you know what? Maybe I need to train that a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't forget as much. And that's okay.
Yep.
And one thing that having students around you that keep you honest is that as a teacher, you go, well, I can learn from these guys too.
That's right.
So I don't know everything. There's plenty of times Trevor teaches me stuff and I go, you know what, Trevor, you're right.
Same.
And, you have to be comfortable with that.
Yeah. I could practice a solo 1,000 times, not miss a single note until I go to perform it. I
Mhm.
might miss a note.
You might
know
miss
what
a
I mean?
note.
It's fine.
And it's okay. It's okay. So we would definitely want to thank you guys for listening to our podcast today. And we also want to give another shout out to Sifu Shane Rowan because he was the one that actually, asked about this topic. So Shane, this is a shout out to you, brother. And again, we want to rep his school. We want to plug his school. Shaolin Kung Fu Studios, 196C Stonebridge Drive, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. northernshaolin.se@gmail.com. Look them up on Facebook, Instagram. I'm sure they have a YouTube page. And guys, we really appreciate you listening to this podcast. And once again, we're here at the Northern Shaolin School of Kung Fu in beautiful Rock Hill, South Carolina. Check us out at www.kungfuforever.com. And also, you can find us on YouTube at the Northern Shaolin School of Kung Fu. Like, share, and subscribe. And if you have any topics that you want us to cover, put it down in the description. Tell us what you like, what you don't like. Heck, tell us how we can improve if not. We would love that.
Everything helps.
Everything helps, guys. Listen, we're open to constructive. Word is constructive criticism.
Martial arts is heavy on good constructive
Yes,
criticism.
constructive criticism. But we really appreciate all of you, and thank you for listening, and Shaolin out. Peace.